Album Concept Hour. The Album Concept Hour. It's the Album Concept Hour. Welcome, everybody, to the Album Concept Hour. I am your host, Brad LeBaron, and we are here for another week of concept albums, and this week is no exception. We have on, before I get to what we're talking about, we have on some very special guests. This is perhaps this is the first time we were having on some international guests for the podcasts to talk about Radiohead's Kid A. We have on Babs and Fran from the Over Underrated podcast. Well, welcome, Babs and Fran.
Good morning to you, Brad. Good afternoon to you, Fran.
Yeah, we're all in different time zones, so like we don't really know where we all line up. But yeah, that was Babs you just heard, and then we have Fran from the Over Underrated podcast.
Good morning, America. I've always wanted to say that.
Oh yeah, I almost forgot about that show until you said that. Like, because
You're welcome.
Yeah, I remember that brings me back to getting ready for school and having it on the background.
It's lovely to be on an American podcast, and it's lovely we get to spread our voices around the world. So thank you for having us.
Thank you for being on. We have had some people on from Canada, but they're just so close. It doesn't feel as international, So yeah, we're very excited to have you guys on to talk about some Radiohead Kid A, which is English band, so you guys are a bit closer to them. But before we get to our discussion about Radiohead, I just wanted to, well, first, I guess, ask you about the Over Underrated podcast. I mean, you can kind of, I guess by the title what you're kind of dealing with, but tell us a little bit about Over Underrated podcast.
So I guess we wanted a podcast where we could talk about bands, artists that we thought were not featured at all in the media. And then we thought, if we are talking about obscure bands, we're going to be really diminishing the people wanting to listen to the podcast. So how can we have an idea?
I've experienced this.
So we thought, hang on, if we then flip the coin and say, who's the opposite of that band? That's how we can get people in. So, for example, our first episode, we had a theme of Britpop. And obviously, you may know Oasis as a rather big band.
Of course.
So we thought, let's talk about a smaller Britpop band. So we chose Shed 7 as the underrated. And that's kind of the theme. It doesn't mean we hate the overrated. But it's like that band or artists, they're well known, but do they deserve it kind of thing? Yeah.
They're like, overrated is just they have a lot of attention on them as opposed to some other groups. Yeah.
Yeah, we try not to do a hate. It happens occasionally.
Yeah.
But we try to be civil.
We'll get there with our Jet King Gizzard episode, because exactly. I'm not fond of Jet.
Yeah. That's it's nice sometimes to have an overrated band that everyone dislikes, and we can just go like, why on earth are they so big? But sometimes, I think we've both been successful in defending famous bands or kind of even changing each other's mind on a band, because what happens is we'll make a 5 or 10 track playlist to represent how we feel about that artist. So when it's an underrated artist, it's always, we think this band is underrated and this is why. When it's an overrated act, sometimes it's an exploration one. So you were saying you were listening to the AC/DC one where we were like, well, we probably don't like them, but let's put together a playlist and see what happens.
Let's see what's going on.
But sometimes, we do really like the overrated band, and we might pick, for example, songs that aren't as big to showcase that, their most popular songs might not be the best ones. And we do also discuss kind of why are more bands famous than others? Is it the timing? Is it the record label promo, et cetera, et cetera? So yeah, that's the premise.
Okay. Maybe I should switch one of the Jet songs then, because I did purposely leave out a Jet song that I enjoy because I was like, this one's too good. I don't want to slam on this, but maybe I should throw that one in.
Yeah, you can throw that one in.
Yeah.
And
But yeah, it's always fun. That reminds me of our Maroon 5 episode that we did. Like, there was one person, John, he's a big fan of the album. It's a great pop album, but like what we do, dissecting it track by track, it got real ugly because it was just like, ooh, this is not the way I want to see anyone in a relationship. So that's it's always fun to really dig in and find out a little more about these. But I want to know a little more about you guys before we got started. Let's start with you, Babs. What were some songs or artists or just music in general that kind of first got you into music or that you called your own?
So despite sounding extremely English, I'm actually Portuguese. I'm originally from Portugal,
all right.
But I grew up in England. So when I think of when did I start becoming kind of obsessed with music, I think it was when girl bands and boy bands of the late 90s started becoming big. So for some people, it was Backstreet Boys, but I'm obsessed with the boy band Five that we've discussed on our podcast. I don't know if you know them.
They're just called Five?
They're just called Five with the number 5.
Yeah. That's really cool.
To represent the F.
Yeah.
They have a song called Slam Dunk to Funk, where they're pretending to be. It is one of the greatest pop songs of all time, in my opinion.
Okay.
But I think if you're an American seeing 5 English boys trying to pretend to be American and cool into basketball, maybe not so much for them. But I think it was kind of around the time of that song, which I think came out in '98, that I became kind of obsessed with pop music, obsessed with buying pop music magazines, listening to the charts. So in the UK, there was Radio 1, which is one of the biggest radio stations.
Yeah, definitely.
Every Sunday had the top 40 countdown. Yeah, so you might have heard of it, where it just played the top 40 songs in the chart. And I would listen religiously to that for ages. But then in early 2001, 2002, when I was becoming a teenager, I got really into Muse and Radiohead that we're talking about today.
Okay.
And Radiohead were my favorite band at one point. So yeah, have a lot to say about them. But then that was my kind of music snob era where I kind of disowned all the pop, was like rock is the only good thing. And that lasted for quite a while until I was in my early 20s and then became a bit more open-minded and then started listening to everything. So yeah, while pop and rock are, probably my favorite genre is electro in there as well. Yeah. I now listen to a bit of everything apart from maybe jazz.
Yeah. So wait, jazz is the one exception, maybe?
Jazz,
okay, Okay.
I'm sure someone can come with like, I don't know, overrated Charles Mingus or something, and we can have a discussion. But
well, have you ever seen jazz?
Folk as well. Folk, I'm not a huge fan either.
I was gonna say, have you ever seen jazz live?
I have, and I am not. I think the jazz I've seen live has been quite experimental.
Okay.
So it's that thing of,
real out there.
I don't know. I feel like maybe if you're on drugs or drunk, you're like, you can get into it.
Yeah. I was going to say,
it's not really been for me.
That's what if you're looking for a way in, that's what I always kind of recommend is like go to a jazz improv night if you can find one or just experience it live. Because my brother was really into jazz and I was like, I don't know what this is.
What's going on?
But then seeing him perform it live and seeing others perform it live, like I was like, oh, right. It's kind of like punk for me. Punk I don't listen to, but I love to go to a punk show,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the one exception was the movie Whiplash that I saw. And, that's all about.
It just
I think
really
that was
struck
because, you. Yeah. It was just so. It made it so visual, because it was so well filmed.
Yeah.
And Caravan, for example, now is a song that I would listen to, but I don't think I would have appreciated it as much otherwise.
Interesting. Maybe I'll have to come on for a jazz episode because I like to rep for jazz, just for my brother's sake, because he's the jazz man, but I know a little bit.
Definitely, we've not done one yet.
But what about you, Fran? What do you? Where did you kind of start with music? Did you kind of get to Radiohead as well in your journey, or what's going on with you?
So I guess I was influenced by my older brothers.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a journey.
Was late 80s hip hop an early 90s rave. Is it rave a term in America? I don't really know. I guess you call it techno, maybe.
I think we call it techno, yeah. But people would understand what you mean if you said rave.
But we're talking like glow sticks and white gloves and whistles.
Yeah. We kind
jeans.
of umbrella term techno, I think, for at least until mid-2000s. It was just all techno.
So like my first gig was The Prodigy, who were kind of part of that scene before they sort of like changed their sound in the late 90s. But I think buying cable TV, or not buying, my parents getting cable TV helped my music taste.
Yeah.
And then I had VH1, and that's what I got into. And I literally I had like the feature when you could have a wire going into your bedroom, but you couldn't change the station. So I put VH1 downstairs, run upstairs, and at night I'd be watching VH1 with a little notepad. And if a song came on the light, I'd make a note, and then I go down to the second-hand record store the next day and buy it on tape or 10p vinyl when vinyl was like worthless, and they'd all stink of like somebody else's house and of damp. And that's so. I guess I was getting into the 80s music, like Talk and Duran Duran and Depeche Mode. And this was like 1994 when all my friends were when my friends were into Oasis and Blur.
Yeah.
I was listening to like Japan and Duran Duran. It was not cool. I had no one to discuss this music with. I had my own little bubble.
Yeah.
And then I think circa 98, I got into Pulp and Oasis. While it was dying out, I got into it. So I saw a lot of bands on their final tour before they broke up. And then in the late 90s, I was a fan of Radiohead. I saw them live a few times, and in the noughties, I got into a lot of Scandinavian indie bands to hide away from the American nu metal scene. I was like, I can't take enough backward caps.
There was no escape. There was no escape in America.
Caps.
So I found a little secret hideaway in Scandinavia. It's still like indie music and electro pop. And then then ever since then,
I apologize for nu metal, by the way, on behalf of
I don't think it's mainly your fault,
the
Brad.
US.
And then since
I think someone should.
I kind of gave up trying to be cool, so now I listen to like pop music or whatever, I listened to Taylor Swift last week, loved it. So I'm up for anything really.
I listened to that 10-minute one recently, and I got choked up within the first minute. I was like, what the fuck, Taylor Swift? Stop this.
She's very good, isn't she?
Powerful woman, isn't she?
Yeah. She's good at getting into the emotions, like just real quick, gets under your skin.
Yeah, so... Yeah, I mean, that's not really a genre I really hate, I guess. But I guess I don't buy
it's not
a
your
lot of
main
grime.
genre, right? Like, but I know what you mean. Like, it's pop was probably one of the last things that I was able to fully appreciate, probably because the late '90s I got so sick of all of it. There was just so much. Even though, in retrospect, that's like a golden age for pop. For sure, at least American pop. Interesting journey though. I like all of the like watching VH1, taking notes, and running to the record shop.
I did not know this, Fran.
That's amazing.
I respect you even more.
I was having a conversation with my mum, and I used to lie about where I was going to. But what I would do is I'd say I was going to college, but it was my day off, and I would walk from town to town, looking at the second-hand record stores, trying to find albums. And I'd walk around for literally 5 hours, and then come back with my bounty and my bus fare would become my music bounty, and that's where I bought my stuff from. My mum was completely unaware of this. So now when people can find a song on Spotify in 4 seconds, like they don't appreciate the struggle.
It's a wonder. Did you become a DJ for a time for your neighborhood?
Yeah.
Like,
I dabbled, but we're talking CD and fade in, fade out.
Yeah.
Any song that stopped instantly. Oh, yes, please.
Yeah.
Cause I wasn't a mixer, but
But I mean that counts to some degree. If you can keep a party going, keep a vibe going, I think that's all that is required of you sometimes as a DJ.
I think like. In the mid-noughties, like there was like an indie boom. So like even like mainstream nightclubs would then have to have like an indie hour. So I was playing to people who probably would prefer Usher, but they're getting the strokes. I'm sorry.
That's such an interesting dichotomy. Yeah, I remember all that indie stuff. Speaking of well, I guess Radiohead's not technically indie because they kind of started out pretty big, right? Yeah, we're gonna get into some Radiohead tracks. You guys chose Kid A from our list, and so you guys wanted to do Amnesiac, but it was just the way that things roll out here, it would have taken a very long time. So we're just doing Kid A for now. Maybe we'll have you come back for the rest. Why Radiohead Kid A in particular?
So, despite us doing a music podcast together, whenever Fran or I, my computer's gone. Whenever Fran and I are asked to guest on something together, and we have to both talk about an album that we like, it's actually quite difficult to narrow it down.
Okay.
And because, obviously the assignment was that it had to be a concept album, we trawled the Wikipedia list and there were a few things. We saw that Manson was on the list, Attack of the Grey Lantern, and that's one of Fran's favorite bands, and we've done an episode on them as well. But I think we have
them on our lists.
You have them on your list, yeah.
Yes.
I'm sure that Fran could come back and discuss. I would not be so knowledgeable. Oh, hang on a second. I'm so sorry. My cable's just unplugged from my computer. I have to go and get it. The charger. One second.
That's fine. Yeah, we don't want her to just shut out at some point randomly.
I'm surprised that Manson is on your radar. Do you have a list of bands you're going to be doing already, Brad?
I have a list of concept albums that we have yet to cover and ones we have covered already. We're doing next month or month after, we're doing Manson's Ed Gein. No, not Ed Gein. We're doing one of the serial killer ones with some guys. I don't know much about the band yet. I found them on a list and I put them on because it seemed a very interesting subject. But yeah, I'm excited to get to them. I just don't know much about it yet.
Just to rep, Fran is a big fan. I'm just repping him again. But
yeah.
Sorry about the interruption. But
it's all right.
But yeah, I think I was saying that Fran and I are both. I would say I'm a big Radiohead fan. Would you say you are as well, Fran? Or are you just a fan?
I'm a big fan of a certain era. I think when they bring out an album now, I wouldn't necessarily leap at it anymore.
Yeah, same.
But if we're talking about this period, then 2000 definitely was a fan of Radiohead.
Definitely.
Yeah.
The thing is, there is an argument of, is Kid A concept album? And I saw a blog post that said yes, it is, because it's about a kind of alienation, the usual kind of alienation, being unhappy. And when you read about kind of the period in between OK Computer, the previous album, and Kid A, it's Tom had a nervous breakdown, wanted to kind of move away from guitar rock and onto this. So I would make an argument that it is, even if it's not super, super clear. But I think me personally, I think it must have been a shock to listen to this album if you're a big Radiohead fan in the 90s with the Bensons.
Oh, absolutely.
OK Computer, it's just as it opens and you're like, there is no bass, guitar, or drums.
What did I put it in the wrong CD?
Exactly. But I started liking Radiohead kind of just after this album came out. So
okay.
I think it started with OK Computer, and then I can't really remember what order it went in. But at some point Hail to the Thief came out, which is the album after this, which was kind of, I guess, a mix of those two Radiohead eras.
Yeah, definitely.
Whenever I came to Kid A, I was already on board with Weirdness, and it took me a while, but I got it in the end, and I liked it.
Yeah, I feel like I had a very similar reaction to this album. I like a lot of the stuff right after this, and the stuff leading up to it is great, of course, but for different reasons. I didn't have the context of the story behind Kid A, and now with the story, which we'll get into listening to this, it is a lot more impactful, I think, if you understand what's going on in Thom Yorke's life at the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we picked this one as well because we did an album that we called the Radiohead Album Showdown, where we each picked our favorite Radiohead album. So I picked Hail to the Thief, and Fran picked the Bends, and we picked our 5 favorite songs to kind of see if we could convince each other that actually we were right. And so we haven't done Kid A. I'm always happy to talk about Radiohead. I think, as Fran said,
awesome.
He likes this era too. So
Well, I'm glad to provide you with a place to do that.
Thank you for letting me do Kid A music homework.
But yeah, this let's get into the first track then. This first track is I don't have the lyrics up right now.
Everything in the right place.
Everything in the right place. Thank you. Here is that. Yeah. Really great on headphones.
Yeah, we're all shaking our heads a little bit.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the beginning of the album, and yeah, like you were saying, like if you were listening to just as a fan up to this point, and this album dropped, you'd probably be a little confused during this track.
Okay. Especially because like this was like pre-proper internet, so
Yeah.
now the rumors have spread. But
Yeah.
to a lot of people, they had no idea that Radiohead had changed tact.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
put the guitars away. So yeah, I guess if you're buying the CD without knowing anything, you'll be like, is there two bands called Radiohead? Something like,
Yeah, right.
Holy moly!
Well, yeah, there was definitely a couple times like I bought a CD of a band I loved, and it was like the one like flopper or whatever, and it was just like you know. But yeah, you couldn't do. There wasn't streaming. There wasn't YouTube. You know, like unless you caught it on the radio, like the single. You know. Yeah.
But like, I don't even think they really released a single from this album, not properly. I think songs came on like MTV, but I don't think you could buy in UK in the 2000s. You could buy physical CD singles. That was a big market.
Yeah,
and I'm pretty sure that didn't happen for this album. It was literally this is Kid A, and you know.
I think I read somewhere that they deliberately wanted to introduce it as an album. They didn't want journalists listening to individual tracks. And I mean, even the way that this album is sequenced, where if you remember the original album, the tracks are out of sync. So when a track, you know, the end of a track is the beginning of the next track, it all just kind of blends into one, which I'd never heard that before when I listened to this album.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I think for like in the UK we had The Enemy and Melody Maker being like the weekly press.
Yeah.
And I was more Melody Maker, and they really fucking hated this album, so if I can swear. Like,
oh, it's okay. Swearing's fine.
They basically accused Thom Yorke of sucking his own dick. That was their review of this album.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh wow.
Well,
so
that's kind of emblematic, I think, of what he was complaining about up to that point about just the rock industry.
Exactly.
Like that's one thing. I watched a bit of the documentary that I must have come with a DVD or something, but yeah, he was sick of the all of the rules that you were supposed to follow as a rock artist, especially a popular stadium filling rock artist, you know. And yeah, throwing that kind of shade at him is totally emblematic of that.
Yeah, especially as they would have venerated him and Radiohead massively up until that point. Like, Fran, when it came out, so did you listen to it as it came out, having listened to the Bensonoka computer?
So, yeah, it was a case of me hearing rumours that this wasn't for normal Radiohead, putting the CD on the stereo, sitting down, looking at the weird inlay, and then hearing this and thinking, okay, next song. Okay.
All right.
Where's Johnny?
They're leaning into this.
So, but what's strange listening back to this album is like, to me, this sounds like a normal, everyday mainstream album. Like, people were talking as if it was like some sort of weird, messed up music, but it's kind of straightforward. Like, there's a couple of songs that's a bit out there, but it's not that uncommercial. There's still songs, you know. Like, when they play it live in the set, it's not like, whoa, what's this song? They do work in the catalogue of Radiohead. So looking back now, it's like, I can't believe people made such a big thing about this album.
Yeah, well, it was kind of like there was like rock was on its way out. Clearly, you know what I mean? Like, people weren't ready to admit it yet, I don't think, but like hip hop was definitely taking over in the 2000s, and rock was nu metal was the thing happening in rock. So there was a decline obviously happening. Sorry, nu metal fans, for all the shade. But they were in some ways ahead of the curve then, as far as that goes. You know, they were like, we don't want to be tied down to this rock mythos. We want to continue to explore what our talents can do, you know?
Yeah, and I think also it was the fact that it was so anticipated, right? I read that Spin magazine called it the most anticipated rock record since Nirvana's In Utero, which I think is kind of true. But yeah, I think reflecting on it, it is quite funny how Radiohead had a song called Anyone Can Play Guitar and Thom Yorke singing about him wanting to be Jim Morrison. And then when that happened, it absolutely burnt him out. And that's why he went to listen to the bloopiest music ever. But yeah, I think, you know, despite, you know, having been a huge Radiohead fan when I was a teenager, doing the research for this, there's so many things that I didn't know. And one of them was kind of like how Tom also kind of alienated the band, and it almost led them to split up. So Johnny Greenwood was like, oh, I don't want this to be like art rock awfulness, or I think he said. And Ed O'Brien was like, I'm a guitarist and I have nothing to do. So it's kind of incredible that, you know, he burnt out. He had a breakdown from what I saw. Listened to new music and was like, okay, this is what we're going to do against literally all the odds, including his band. So yeah, it makes it even more impressive.
I guess, you know, if you are going to do this, being one of the biggest bands in the world, you can kind of get away with it a little bit more. If this was a second album, it might have destroyed the band completely.
Yeah, you're right.
So pun intended, everything was in the right place for the band to do this.
Maybe that's even conscious. Who knows?
Yeah. And I mean, it is a great opener to show that sound, because it is just basically synths, Tom's voice, and bleepy bloops, which I'm going to say throughout. I'm sorry, I don't know the technical term, but I think, Fran, you're right. Like, when it's kind of hard to listen to this now without being like, well, yeah, this is Radiohead, right? You're like, of course, this is Radiohead.
Yeah.
There's still alienation. There's, you know, Tom's voice being modulated. Well, you know, they already kind of did that with Fitter Happier on OK Computer. It is still the same sound and themes, but just more electronic.
Well, yeah, without knowing about the story, I never had any questions looking at the discography. But again, it's all in the context, you know. And they were like just friggin' huge, especially, you know, Creep was the mega hit in America that, like, kind of, I guess, for the people in charge of money, that solidified them as like, oh, we can make money off of them if they do this rock stuff. And alternative, I guess.
Brad, that video of Radiohead playing Creep, I think it's like an MTV pool party. So it's like Radiohead in the mid 90s, surrounded by babes at a swimming pool. It's singing Creep. It's absolutely hilarious. The juxtaposition.
Is that the bleached blonde hair Thom Yorke?
Bleached blonde hair Thom Yorke looking very miserable. I think.
Yeah. Clearly not enjoying his time. Like, from what I could tell, like, he didn't seem like he was excited about being in front of a crowd from the get-go. So, like, the fact that they blew up as fast as they did really worked against Thom Yorke, as maybe he's an introvert. I don't know exactly, but
he's definitely a grumpy man. Like, as much as he's my hero, I would never want to meet him, because I just have the feeling that he'd be dismissive, and like, it would ruin my image. So happy to keep him at a distance.
I think I could play a game with him, like a competitive game or something, you know, so that's built into it, that kind of grumpiness, you know.
Hi, Tom. I've come here with some Boggle.
Let's get down on some Boggle, please. I want to get to know you.
Can that be another podcast?
Boggle with musicians.
Yeah, please.
That's a brilliant. I mean, there is a visual element, so it might need to be on
YouTube channel.
On the YouTube channel. Yeah. But bringing back Boggle is something I am for.
Bring back Boggle. That's going to be the hashtag for this episode. Who would have thought?
Bring back Boggle. Yeah.
Can you play Clue with Jet? That'd be fun.
That's a good question. I could have a selection for them.
That's great.
But you guys want to get on to another track? We have they kind of continue on for this next track into, I think, a similar place as the first track. The first two are very, you know, slow, drawly a little bit. But this is the titular track, Today.
Yeah, so I think for me...
1 second. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, sorry, I completely forgot.
Habits.
So I think listening to everything in its right place. Okay, it sounds weird, but it's like Fran says, it sounds pretty mainstream. I think this is maybe the weirdest one, or one of the weirdest ones, which must have been really bizarre to listen to. When it came out, and actually, this one took me a while to like it. I think because probably of the way that Tom's voice is distorted. Because when you think about the individual components, Phil Selway's solid drums as ever, that shines through in a lot of songs here. The kind of slightly nightmarish piano motif, it is actually quite beautiful, but the way that the voice is distorted is a little bit weird.
It's all a bit like
a little unsettling.
Hal from 2001.
Yeah,
it's kind of that vocal happening. I think I do still skip to 3 of these songs. So having to hear this recently, I was like, oh yeah, God, I forgot about this track. Again, putting this so high up in the album is also another ballsy move, because this is a day when you'd go into like Virgin Megastore or Tower Records.
Oh yeah,
and then
you'd try them out.
So if you heard those 2 songs, you're out the door.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's songs on here which you could put up higher up and maybe catch some of the old Radiohead fans.
Well, you want like 2 or 3 is where you want the single to be, usually. Back then.
Yeah, so it's a ballsy move doing this.
Very much so.
And reading about it, because I again, things I didn't know, they deliberately chose to release this as 2 albums rather than 1. And Tom was talking about how they chose the sequencing very deliberately. He said something like, I don't want all the good songs to be on one record, because if that happens, that could actually make a bad album. So they really thought about which songs
that's a very
in
good
which
point.
order.
But yeah. I still think that over the 2 albums, Amnesiac, they could maybe make a perfect 13-track album still. I think there's filler on both albums, personally. I don't believe Babs.
Okay.
I think maybe 1 or 2 things, but not as much filler as I would say. But there are some songs here where I'm like, I like it more than others.
For me, as a concept album guy, I'm always the whole album, no skips. But that's just how my brain works. I mean, I can do playlists, of course, but when I put on one that I'm like really trying to like absorb, and this one, I will say, like the last couple listens throughs, not to get too into my personal life, but like I have some anxiety that I am trying to work through, different anxiety things, and that is what I got out of the entire listen through, was like, this is like perfect for someone that is experiencing an anxiety episode or something and needs to like just drift off and feel like there's no pressures of the world. Like I really, really see like Thom Yorke's perspective in this album, from the just anxiety standpoint,
Yeah, that's cool, because it sounds like you're one of those people who uses kind of sad or anxious music to actually make you feel less sad or anxious.
Absolutely.
Right? I think Fran and I are both like that. So I certainly am. Like I like to listen to loud, shouty or sad, depressive music to make myself feel better.
Would you say this is a perfect for vinyl, because all the songs sort of blend into each other? It's
definitely,
like you need to be alone with some decent headphones or decent speakers and just let it wave go over you, to be fair. There's not a lot of I don't think have Radiohead ever had a party album. I guess the Bends is probably it's the only album you can have in the background at a party, maybe.
But even the Bends, I mean,
nice dream.
Nice dream.
But if you're playing some like board games with some friends, like you can throw this on in the background. It's like pretty.
What board game would that be, Brad? Which band would it be?
What board game? Shit, I didn't think about this. I guess it'd have to be Boggle to start out with.
Of course.
Yeah, for the first one.
Boggle with Bob Dylan, why not?
Boggle with Bob Dylan, he's still around.
I will just, before we move to the next track, I just wanted to say that John Mayer has a cover version of this song, which is very good, and I am not a particular fan of John Mayer. The little music I've heard hasn't been to my taste.
Wait, John Mayer has a cover of this?
He has a cover of this where it's basically just an acoustic guitar and his voice.
So
I really
weird.
recommend listening to it, Brad.
Yeah.
I think if you think this song is weird, go and listen to that song, which just really breaks it down into the chords and the melody line of the vocals, and it will change your mind.
Yeah, that is blowing my mind just knowing that exists. That's John Mayer's always doing just weird stuff. He tried to be a
all I know about
comedian
him
for
is
a
he broke
minute.
Taylor Swift's heart, right? So
He broke Taylor Swift's heart. He tried to be a comedian and was kind of cringy for that. And yeah, he's always like trying stuff though. That John Mayer.
Radiohead haven't done a big deluxe version of this album yet, so it'd be nice to hear. Have they? But like
they
with all
did
the
Keen
demos.
Amnesia.
Yeah,
but
they have one that's all together or whatever.
Or together and then with an extra album.
But it'd be nice to hear in a later date for original demos, because I'm sure like you'd hear Tom with the piano.
Oh
guitar,
like a stripped down.
That'd be nice to hear where it first came from, because I've heard
that would be really interesting.
There's a couple of songs we're going to mention, and I've heard their like first versions back in the 90s. But like things like Kid A, it'd be interesting to hear the original version.
Everything in its right place was originally composed on piano as well before it went to synthesizer.
Well, this is his first time apparently playing keyboard, and that's one thing he said that he really enjoyed about the process, because it was an explorative kind of creative process because of that. And you can hear it, you can hear some of the simplicity in it, which is part of what's beautiful about it, I think. That it's not overly complex, it's not show-offy, it's just a vibe or whatever. But yeah, before we get on to the next track, just to speak to the lyrics a little bit, the lyrics are really kind of random in this album, and for a very particular reason. I forgot what the style is, but he was inspired by this style where you would take just random lyrics and kind of put them together in places that seemed like they made sense. Not like you wouldn't write them all together, but you would take what you had and kind of shuffle it around. So that's part of why it's a little all over the place lyric wise. And then this outro here, this weird line that was in the clip that I had, the rats and the children will follow me out of town. Rats and children follow me out of town. Come on, kids. Which is from the Pied Piper story.
Exactly. And there's another song later where for me it has children's nursery rhymes or children's books vibes, which I think is recurring because in Is It There There from Hail to the Thief, that's inspired by a children's book as well. He does like that imagery. And yeah, children do not get a good rep in one of the songs coming up later as well.
Well,
was he a father by now?
He was a father by Hail to the Thief because Sail to the Moon is dedicated to his son Noah. This is geeky Barbara knowledge from the 2000s coming back. I can't remember what I did yesterday, but I remember that. So I think he might have been married by then because one of the songs was inspired by work that his wife did, but maybe not yet.
Yeah. I was always thinking with this one that he was talking about the fans, like in general. I don't know if he's talking about the fans in later times, but in this track in particular, I feel like he's this is like commentary to like, I'm going out of town. I'm going way out there. Follow me if you want. Stay if you want. He's just like basically telling the fans like, come on with me on this journey if you want to, man. It's going to be different.
I hadn't thought about it like that, but I'm looking at them now and it seems right. Yeah. We've got heads on sticks and you've got ventriloquists. That makes it sound like he doesn't want to be controlled. Right?
Yeah. Like he feels like he had the infamous time where he couldn't speak or communicate on the last tour that they did. And he was just, he was overwhelmed, I think, by the amount of fans and just... Yeah, I'm getting anxious just thinking about it. But I'm sure that he had a lot of struggles with that. But
also, I think like after this period was when they started to do their own tours with their own tents, so they were in control of everything. So rather than having to go to big venues, they could control, the sound quality and the prices. So it was about Radiohead completely taking control after the late 90s, blew them away. Mentally.
Let's get into the next track, though. This is probably the first one I think that average Radiohead fans would probably be digging. This is the national anthem. Yeah, one of my favorite instrumental parts in the album, probably.
Babs, have you learned that bass riff?
Well, you've really queued me up, Fran, without maybe knowing, but this is the first song I learned to play on bass. So, Brad, I'm a bad bass player. I wanted to learn bass. I wanted to buy a bass. I walked into a shop. I'm a bad bass player too,
actually.
Oh, cool. We're I was going to say BBC, but that means something. I was like, no. But BBC means something else.
Around here, usually.
But I walked into a bass shop and I was like, well, the national anthem seems pretty simple. Let me see if I can pick up a bass and play it. And I basically picked up a bass and played it. So yes, it is a very simple bass line that Thom Yorke apparently was 16 when he wrote.
I read that. Yeah, that's really like, I mean, for a 16-year-old, that's a pretty like sweet lick on the bass.
It's very, very groovy.
Yeah,
so do we feel sorry for Colin because he doesn't get a lot of stuff to do in this album? Then the most famous bass line is Thom Yorke.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Like his one moment to shine taken away from him.
I mean, maybe he put his own spin on it. Maybe it's better because of his take. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I think you're kind of right, Fran.
But yeah, I feel like that's funny.
Next album, Hail to the Thief, there's a few more kind of epic bass lines there that probably he came up with.
Yeah. Well, he definitely lands it. You know what I mean? Like this section was I don't know if it was inspired by Mingus, but it's very Mingus. And you can like the bass and the orchestra and everything going together at the end is just like that right there is jazz when it's like really good. I think
it's kind of strange. Sorry, I think I know most of this album by hearing it live more than the original version. So I completely forgot about these sort of like chaos horns.
Oh yeah.
It blew me away. But I guess it does offer a more intense ride than I'm used to. Again, they would offer you a more traditional bass line, but by the end of the song, it's still going to be strange. It's still going to be different.
Well, it starts like it's one of those songs that kind of starts simpler and then kind of just keeps building and just keeps building. You know?
Yeah. And I mean, I read, Brad, that it was inspired by Town Hall Concert by Charles Mingus, and Thom Yorke was conducting this brass section, and the notes he gave was make it sound like organized chaos, like a traffic jam. And he apparently jumped up and down so much in the enthusiasm of conducting it that he broke his foot.
Wow. Good job, Thom Yorke.
That's how much he was into it. But I always found it interesting that I think especially Johnny Greenwood maybe is the big jazz head in Radiohead. And in both Kid A and Amnesiac, there are definitely jazz-inspired songs and brass sections, but I think they make it work. I really like when they play it live how they use different radio sounds that they then kind of cut up, because that's also in the background, just kind of talking. And I think this is the first one that feels the most kind of like classic Radiohead until the mad ending. It's quite rocky. You've got Colin keeping it together on the bass and Phil's again steady drums, but just a brass section added in. Why not?
Yeah. Why not? They have the clout now. You know, they can get that from the record label. So what I love is that I'm really glad that the record label, I don't know, at least from the outside, seems like they allowed them to flourish, where some record labels might try to stifle this, or I don't know, maybe the record label tried to stifle it and then couldn't because it was Radiohead. But I mean, I have to think that the suits at the label were concerned about this album. You know what I mean? Because their concern is always to sell units or whatever.
Even though I looked at this album went to number 1 in the Billboard charts. It was the first Radiohead album to go to number 1. And it sold in the US more than 207,000 copies in the first week. So the hype clearly, maybe they left it alone because the hype was so big, and because I guess it was 3 years, right?
Yeah. Because it was 2 years of just straight writer's block. So it took them. That's probably part of the reason, the anticipation for this album.
You were going to ask me something, Fran?
Yeah. Obviously, this has a lot of strings and horns, but I can't actually remember a time where they played on stage with anyone else apart from the core members? Like, have they ever done a live string section or horn section? Because for a band who are this big, it seems odd that they've never really, had like maybe 10 or 15 people doing like a big live sound. It always seems to be just 5 or 6 core members. So that's why when you hear this live, a lot of it is removed because they haven't got horns.
Live horns make a big difference. That's a good question.
It. I can't find an easy answer, but maybe because I imagine Thom Yorke and maybe a few of the others are a bit of a control freak. Like that is something that you'd really need to work together on. But I think that's what's kind of amazing about Radiohead. I think, there's a song that later I didn't like or I kind of skipped it until I saw it live. Yeah. Because live it sounded completely different and it helped me kind of come back to it. And I think with Radiohead that happens a lot. They're definitely a band that change things up because they have to sometimes, because you don't have a brass band in your pocket. But other times because they want to, because they wanted to have a different sound, which is very exciting for a fan. Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's like when you go to see a band live and it's a very different setup for a song, it's like, whoa, what is this? What's going on? Yeah.
That's why I like the Depeche Mode, because if you listen to them, as the technology changed, they would change how they performed it live. So every time you heard Enjoy the Silence, it would be a new rhythm track, a new guitar solo. It wasn't the same song each time, so I kind of enjoy that.
Yeah,
you don't get with a lot of like straightforward rock bands.
Yeah. I think that's just the sign of a good band in general, to be able to, because I mean, I don't know. You get bored, bands clearly get bored doing that kind of stuff over and over again. Well, I guess some bands don't. Some bands will do it till they die. But like, I don't know. If you're someone that's like, not comfortable just sitting in one, creative space, like that's just not going to work for you, you need to continuously reshape things.
Which is why, me and Babs have discussed this. Like, it's so funny when people get mad when they go and see an artist and they aren't performing the song exactly like the album on it. It's like, what do you really want?
Yeah, it's so like, it must be so frustrating for the artists, you know what I mean, to hear that kind of thing. It's like, well, you just want me to play like the carbon copy of the thing every time?
Yeah. It's like you want me to be a performing monkey kind of thing.
Yeah. It's not a reasonable expectation as a fan. But this next track we have for you guys is How to Completely Disappear, getting into some of that anxiety stuff.
I'm not here. This isn't happening.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Strings gave me goosebumps there. So I think this was maybe the one, maybe you'll agree with me, Brad, where knowing what happened and then looking at the lyrics, you're like, wow, you feel this one quite differently. Yeah. You do feel that all he wants to do is disappear down, and I never realized this is what he was saying, down the Liffey River, which is the river in Dublin. I saw a Reddit thread which was like, oh, is Thom Yorke here? And it was a picture of the River Liffey and this person just like, swimming in it, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's totally passed me by. But you have this acoustic guitar and Tom's voice, which I would say is kind of, let's say, standard pre Radiohead, but the sinister strings and the way that it ends definitely they're adding another layer, they're adding other kinds of sounds. Yeah. Despite, for me, this is a natural companion to exit music for a film or talk show host. It's a similar atmosphere created, but there is something weird with the strings going on.
It's there's something off-putting, or I don't know if there's minor keys happening or what, but there's definitely something. It makes you feel uneasy. Bit.
It's got the hallmarks of like a horror soundtrack with that sort of like climbing bass and the descending strings. But it's Tom's vocals that turns that horror into something beautiful. And I was lucky enough in 2001 to see them play their homecoming gig.
Oh wow!
Where and there's an EP called is it Am I Wrong or I Might Be Wrong? and a couple of those songs are from that gig. And it's the first time they had done any songs from Amnesiac and Kid A. And when they played this, it started to rain, and it had a purple light across the whole stage. And I cried. I cried.
Again, I got shivers just listening to that again.
And that was without an orchestra, but you still felt the intensity and the beauty of and that bass line sort of like going up and down, sort of like
just like
when I
just
first heard the album,
barely there. I love that bass line because I like a bass line that is doing a lot, but you also don't recognize. You don't really notice it too much. You know, it's just uplifting everything. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I guess on this album, if you were just a fair weather Radiohead fan, this would be a one song that's kind of worked. I remember when I first heard it the first way round, it was like maybe this and another one. I thought, okay, I like two songs at least. And then after a while, the other one sort of soaked in. But
like this is like absolutely. This has been on my lower on my list of Radiohead albums. For a long time. It was like, I mean, it's fun, but I don't get the fuss. So yeah, I completely understand. But yeah, again, for me, it was all the context that changed it for me. I love In Rainbows. That's like probably my favorite. Because
that's not one of my favorites, unfortunately.
Probably because it was free, and I was able to.
I think In Rainbows was my Kid A, and what I mean by that is, by that point, I was a massive Radiohead fan, and Hail to the Thief is my favorite Radiohead album, right? So I was expecting that, and In Rainbows, it wasn't. I maintain, right, and this is very controversial, and I haven't met anyone. Oh no, maybe I have met someone with the same opinion, but the second album of In Rainbows, like the B-sides one, I prefer.
I don't think I've actually listened to that yet.
Down is the New Up and stuff.
Is it called the basement sessions? Perhaps
no, because that's the live.
That's just the live In Rainbows, right?
So they have another CD with, I guess, kind of B-sides, and it has Down is the New Up, Up on the Ladder.
Yeah,
really great
Bangers and Mash, is that one?
Bangers and Mash, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
But I think with a bit of distance, I would say I really like maybe half of In Rainbows. Like the songs that I like from In Rainbows, I really like Reckoner and Videotape.
Yeah. I think for me it was like probably just the first one that I got into, so it's hold a just special place for that reason.
But this is why it's so interesting to talk to people about bands that we all clearly started liking Radiohead at different times and came across it in different ways. And I think whatever you listen to first is going to influence
usually
what you like and don't like.
Usually your first for any particular band is kind of special,
Brad.
Yeah.
When that album came out, you could pay what you wanted.
Yeah.
I think I paid £2.50.
Yeah.
Did you pay anything, or did you just go for free?
My brother downloaded it for free, I think, and then I listened to it from him. I got a lot of stuff from my little brother actually, instead of my older brother. But yeah, it was. This was one that he was listening to. Him like, I know of that band, but I don't know what the deal is with them. And then I'd hear I think 15 Steps. I was like, what is that? That sounds interesting. Because I hadn't heard anything quite like it before. So, 15
Steps is a good song.
The album starts real strong. It really does have a good,
and ends really strong, I think. There's I would reshuffle. I would definitely pick a few out from. I would really recommend, Brad, listening to that second CD, especially if now you're a bigger Radiohead fan, because I think.
Well, I mean, especially after listening to this with context, this album is definitely going to be more on re-listenings. Or I'm going to be really listening to this more.
This is not. You can't listen to this album once. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But I was interested to find out in my research that it's named after a book called How to Disappear Completely and Never Be Found.
Oh yeah, about the guy that faked his own death. Yeah.
And it's basically how to do it, literally kind of how to assume someone's identity who's of a similar age and from a similar location, and how to stop the paper trails and Wikipedia. It's obviously this isn't relevant anymore.
Yeah. I think you have to also get enough blood of your own into into bags so that you the scene of your death or whatever. There's too much blood to ever have survived. That might be a different book, but
wow.
that's one way that someone actually did fake their death.
Okay,
yeah. They're like, oh, no one could have possibly survived this. He's got to be dead. Yeah. I don't know how to transition to this next track, guys, but from that conversation.
Well, I guess it is a transition track, right?
That's true. That's
track.
true. Oh, yeah, because I should mention, so how to disappear completely, really diving into his anxiety and difficulties with performing live and making music. And then I think that they needed something between this incredibly like kind of down song and the song Optimistic. They didn't want to go straight from completely disappear to optimistic. So here is this is an instrumental track, Tree Fingers. Now, this one I did listen to, but I do understand if someone skips this on a listen through. If you're not trying to meditate or something, like it's...
That's what I put. This is alternative music for spa treatments.
Yeah.
If you're bored of Enya and Well Song, try some Tree Fingers. Yeah. Just on repeat. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I like this as a musical instrumental interlude, but I wouldn't seek it out.
Yeah, you're not like going to listen to this on its own,
Yeah. Imagine if you put Kid on and like that, all I'm going to listen to is that's weird. That's weird.
Unless you're specifically trying to meditate or like
or make it
like
an
it definitely
meditation
is
playlist, right?
it does help with like maybe like anxiety. Like I could see throwing this on some good headphones and just listening to this for a few minutes if you're feeling anxious, because the whole album again is just makes you feel like just I don't know good on a very base level, even though there's some difficult things being discussed.
Yeah, and I found it really interesting to read about how this song was created. So apparently Ed O'Brien played guitar for 10 minutes, and then Thom loaded it into his sampler, played bits on his keyboard, and then just chopped it up and moved it around. So,
whoa, really?
Yeah, that's very impressive. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, Ed O'Brien's like, I'm not taking credit for this because, I played stuff, but it was Thom who kind of created it, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I mean, Fran, I know you know more about Brian Eno than I do. Like, is this not a million miles away from that kind of stuff?
Yeah, this definitely has a Brian Eno-esque to it. I'm just having a look to see if they ever played this live, and I can't see them ever playing it, unfortunately.
Not surprised, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a palate cleanser, isn't it?
This would be like what would play before the set, or like, or I don't know, maybe while they're getting ready for the encore. Like it would just play,
True.
Yeah.
I can hear that.
You could throw this before any set, honestly. Like it fits in a lot of places. I think this track, as long as you don't think of it as a Radiohead like single track or something. Yeah. But so there's not much to talk about lyric wise. But it's a nice little interlude here, and it gets us to the song "Optimistic." I always appreciate his vocals in general. He always really, really commits to his vocals.
I love Thom Yorke's voice, but I think I remember there was this guy at school who was like, he sounds so whiny, and I'm like, but that's the point. Like it's real. You're feeling the emotions. So yeah.
I'm a fan of just strange, not necessarily perfect to the ear vocals, because that's kind of how my voice sounded when I was in a band back in the day. I sounded like I was straining all the time, and so I appreciated some weird sounding artists because I was like, I get it, man.
A bit like were you a bit like Billy Corgan vocally.
Yeah. Well, no. I was more like Mark Hoppus, where it was like kind of a flat, I don't know, flat straining kind of vocal. I was in a pop punk band back in the day. But yeah, it was. I always like these, kind of vocals where they're you can tell they're really, really trying. They're putting their all into it. That's all I can ask from a singer.
I find it impossible to sing along without doing the Thom Yorke head shake. To be fair.
Oh yeah. He's also very fun to watch. Just move around.
Yes.
He's very expressive in his lead singer role.
Yeah. And I've always found amazing though how much Ed O'Brien also sounds like Thom Yorke, because he's often doing the backing vocals.
Okay.
And it is indistinguishable sometimes to know.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of know that it's not going to be him doing the lead.
Yeah.
But sometimes on Radiohead records, you're like, is that Ed O'Brien or is it Thom Yorke doing both vocals? And it's difficult to tell sometimes. But yeah, I have to say, so this song and the next one, I did not like immediately. I think with both of them, well, I didn't love immediately. I needed to watch them live. Yeah. But, I mean, listening to it now, this sounds like absolutely straightforward Radiohead. This would fit.
Yeah.
This could easily fit in, Hail to the Thief with They're There or something like that.
Definitely.
Okay, there's like a different percussion and, a tambourine, but before the kind of jazzy bass section before the end, it almost sounds, I would say, Britpop, actually, like just a straightforward rock song. And I'm sure we'll get to the lyrics, but there's a lot of children's nursery rhymes and literature going on there.
Yeah. Well, I was, before we get to those, I was thinking a lot of Muse in this album in general, I don't know if Muse was already making stuff that sounded like this yet.
Yes.
Okay. So they kind of coincided a little bit.
Yeah, we guested on a podcast called Unsung Podcast where we discussed Origin of Symmetry by Muse, and I think they were more angry than us maybe that Muse were termed as Radiohead ripoffs because their debut album came out in '99 and sounded a lot. That
sucks.
This,
that really blows when a bigger band
Space for both.
takes.
Listening to this, I kind of can hear where Nude came from, because when he goes, ooh, hey, you can hear later on, Nude has a very similar sort of like Thom Yorke melody, but obviously this has the frantic drum fills, which gives it more leads to life. But like I said, this easily could be played during any 90s Radiohead show and people would freak out, and it's got, I like,
definitely.
The best you can is good enough.
Yeah, and especially if it's in the middle of like a bunch of the other regular ones, like you wouldn't bat an eye. Like it's a little slower, but like that's not a bad thing. You were saying that there's some nursery rhyme stuff going on here.
Well, definitely fodder for the animals living on Animal Farm. That's the one, but what was it?
Animal Farm, right? Is where he's kind of referencing
George Orwell.
George Orwell.
George Orwell. But what else? There was something else in this one. Maybe I can't find. All I'm reading about is nervous, messed up, a marionette floating around in a prison ship.
That's a strange line for this track.
Oh no, that was it. It was this little piggy, because he says this one's optimistic.
That's
this
right.
one went to market.
Yeah.
This one just came out the swamp. This one drops the pit. So that's exactly that.
Yeah.
Before the Living Animal Farm. So they do love to bring that up, don't they?
Yeah. They're bringing up a lot of random references to kind of mold into cohesive thing.
I mean, people love to call Radiohead pretentious, but it's not like he's referencing Kafka or something. He's referencing this little piggy.
Like, I don't know, in a way, just pursuing like new art and new planes of art is just, I don't know. There's some ways there's no way to avoid the pretentiousness of it. I think to some people, it's always going to be pretentious. You know. But
it's not always easily accessible, and I think we're saying that this is maybe one of the most, but still, like you have to. I don't, even I, as someone who was getting into Radiohead, didn't like it immediately. Yeah. So you need patience, and while Creep obviously is, I think a fairly immediate song, this one takes a bit longer.
Yeah.
Brad.
Yeah.
Does the term in American press doing a Kid A? Is that a thing you guys use?
Oh, doing a Kid A.
To this day, if a band ever does like a left turn album, it's called they did a Kid A, meaning it's not expected. I wonder if that's the term just in the UK press, or was that across the world?
We would probably talk about Kanye in that sense. We'd probably be talking about one of the Kanye left turns, who I'm not going to be speaking about much today.
Yeah, he's got enough airspace, I think.
Yeah. He's covering his own shit.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just glad that we released our Kanye episode before all of this was going down.
We talked about Marilyn Manson, I think, before all the allegations as well. Glad for that.
Yeah.
And Queens of the Stone Age, there's been some stuff about Josh Homme. Glad we did that before that came out. So, yeah.
Right.
But it's always going to happen, isn't it?
It is. Well, yeah, I mean, not to cast aspersions on rock, but there is a whole litany of rock musicians that we love dearly that have done horrible things.
I do feel like maybe, I don't know, every third episode that Fran and I do, it's like, let's research this, but oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize.
Yeah, it's a humbling experience to learn about the dirty deets of some of these people.
The lack of consequences.
We haven't done a Led Zeppelin album yet, have we? Or
no, I'd very much like to do Led Zeppelin because you don't like them very much, right, Fran? And,
I just think slightly overrated, maybe.
Yeah, I think that fits with your guys' format.
Yeah,
I would agree.
Maybe in future.
But this next track we got for you guys is In Limbo.
I think if you're not sure about Thom Yorke losing his mind, you would know. No.
Yeah.
He keeps mentioning being lost at sea.
Yeah.
We get it, Tom. You're lost. You're alienated.
Yeah. Like, that's the thing about this is, like, he's in such a state of, like, I don't know, recovery or like trying to just unravel what's going on in his head. And when he talks about it in retrospect, it's like he understands so much more about it. But he talks about that and some of the things, like he didn't really know what emotions he was throwing out there necessarily as much as he just needed to get it out, in this one especially, you can hear that, like, I'm lost. I'm living in a fantasy world. Don't bother me. Literally, don't bother me. Like, this is a, life's been anxious. I just want to be alone. I don't want to be in front of a bunch of people. I just want to be me and relax,
Exactly that. And it was interesting to read about how initially the song was called Lost at Sea before it was called In Limbo. But it's because apparently, so Tom's, now unfortunately deceased wife, Rachel, she was an expert on Dante's Inferno. Yeah. He now has an Italian model girlfriend, I think, very different. Anyway.
All right.
Like, a much younger girlfriend type thing.
All right. Well, he's been through some tragedy. I don't know.
Some stuff.
Not the first lead singer of a band to do that.
Yeah. There's a certain McCartney fella.
He's hot. No, I don't know. But yeah, so apparently she was an expert on Dante's Inferno. And he said, I'll give the quote. So I just got really into all the aspects of limbo, the levels of hell, because it's quite formative to the way that we all think about heaven and hell and so on. The song was kicking around. And once I'd started recording, some of the voice stuff on it really just sounds like the voices from limbo, voices that can't get out. So it's like levels. Yeah. Like it definitely, the way that the music is, the guitars especially, is shaping the song. It sounds like the sea. It sounds like waves on a sea. But this song, I think this song took me absolutely ages to like. It took me a very long time to like. I just didn't get it until I saw it live, and I saw Ed O'Brien doing the and I think I hadn't kind of isolated that in my head. And there's so much going on in this song because there's some actual bass, there's two different guitars, and feels quite solid, but kind of far away drums. So it took me such a long time to get my head around it. And even I think I listened to the song 5 times today before writing notes. But it became one of my favorites. It was my favorite for a while. Now I'm not sure if it would be, but I really like this song. But definitely not easy listening at all.
Yeah, it's got a real atmosphere to it, which I think kind of goes to some of what inspired some of the lyrics, like at least at the outro. He says, come back, Lundy, Fastnet, Irish Sea, another message I can't read.
That's what I wanted to mention. So Brad, have you heard of the shipping forecast?
Yeah, well, now I have because of this little fact. But he's what exactly is the shipping forecast, though?
I mean,
for
Fran, you
people
can
that
probably explain it better than I do, right? Or
it's just a load of nonsense. Well, it's a guy. Usually it's a guy just in a very slow voice, just saying random words that to everybody else in the world, apart from people involved in shipping, do not understand. That seems to be what it is.
So basically, like, parts of the British Isles and surrounding are divided into different parts, including Lundy, Fastnet, Irish Sea. So the shipping forecast is basically someone reading out each section and then saying what the weather is like. So it's like, Lundy, good. Fastnet, this. So if you know nothing about it, it sounds like some kind of stream of consciousness fever dream.
Okay.
But apparently he'd bought a house in Cornwall in southwest England at this point. So I think those are the areas kind of nearest to him, apparently. I didn't know this.
Interesting. That's really interesting.
I really, if you want some fun, I'm sure just go on YouTube and
just
Google
fun. Fun's a strong word.
Oh yeah, no, I'm super stoked to check that out.
Yeah, forget Boggle with Bob Dylan. This is more exciting. But no, just to kind of hear a snippet of it, because I think, well, now you know a little bit more. Well, probably you know as much as I do. Like it is a weird.
Yeah,
I think it's one of those things that the BBC hold on to, because no one out there is relying on the radio to tell them the shipping forecast. It's 2022.
Yeah,
but not.
We have to do it. It's a tradition.
It's for those like holdout family members that refuse to get with the times. You know, so there's like 50 people tops. You know that are using.
Oh my
this.
god! So I'm just reading. In August 2017, it celebrated the service's 150th anniversary. That is pretty impressive.
How?
Yeah, that's how long it's been going.
Has radio been around that long?
No, you can be a guy with a big cone just screaming it into this.
Yeah, I'm reading now, and it happened. So it happened because the steam clipper Royal Charter was wrecked in a strong storm, and 450 people died. So apparently, I'm reading this off Wikipedia. Vice Admiral Robert Fitzroy introduced a warning service for shipping in February 1861 using telegraph communications.
Holy
so there we go.
Crap. That's really
more interesting
cool.
than we thought, right? So
they can't stop. Like
they can't.
Yeah, no, like that'd be wrong to stop at this point.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I think it is a bit of that, isn't it? Like I have no idea what what the listenership is, but I do think some people listen as a kind of a bit like the tree fingers of radio. It is
right.
As Fran says,
it fade into to your day. Yeah.
Before ASMR was a thing, you have a shipping forecast.
Yeah. This is all they had. This is all I see ASMR people had.
Yeah. Maybe that's what Tom was listening to soothe his own anxiety.
I think he was. But I think you've covered this song pretty well. We're gonna get on to the next track. This is Idiotech.
I see you coming, throw it in the fire, throw it when I'm scared, mongering, this is really happening, when I'm scared, mongering, this is really happening.
I think it's probably helping that I am now a bigger hip hop fan. Listening to this, because all of the production stuff is really, really good in this album. Like it's fully like, listen to this on headphones if you haven't heard this album before out there. It's one of those albums that you can absorb a lot of different pieces in the background. But yeah, really, really great track.
I mean, if you hear this live, it's even more hip hop. Like Tom is properly giving like a menacing rap, and this is one of the songs you have to hear live because I think it's far better.
Well, I've seen videos
live.
and it's amazing.
Go for it.
Yeah.
It's harder. And I think Pitchfork said this is the 8th best song of the decade.
Oh, wow. Okay. Pitchfork really likes this one.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I think
it's a solid
this is
track.
maybe...
I don't know if it's 8th best in the decade, but
Well, it's Pitchfork. I mean, but I would say it's probably maybe the 2nd or 3rd best song on the album. It moves. You instantly get sucked in by the samples.
Yeah.
I think the samples by Paul Lanksey, is it?
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't know there were samples until today, and I listened to 43 seconds into Mild and Liza. He plays that the 4 chords, which he composed in 1973 on an IBM computer. It sounds incredible. I really recommend checking it. I'd never heard it before today.
Okay.
And he gave it to him for free. He didn't charge him because he's a nice guy.
Oh, wow.
Paul Lanksey, thank you.
You should send me a link to that if you have that.
Yeah, will do.
So I can put it in the description.
Mm-hmm. And I think the lyrics, like you said earlier, were another cut and paste method, a bit like what Bowie used to do in the 70s.
Okay. Where with actual, like, you literally take the tape. And,
just phrases, and then you thought, okay, those phrases work together, and then,
Yeah. We just covered Tubular Bells by Mike Oldfield, which is like, he's just adding tape on top of tape on top of tape, and it's just, thinking about that, and then thinking about how much more freedom, like, Thom Yorke had, in putting this together. It's crazy. People used to do that.
Yeah, I think this one, when you read the reviews, everyone says, like, this is the song that was the most furthest away from the original Radiohead sound, and I think I could maybe agree with that.
Accurate, yeah. It's kind of the best of. It's like the best example of what they could do in this album, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. I agree. And I guess it has kind of similar synthy sounds to Everything in Its Right Place, but this is way more violent. and reading about how it was made. So again, it was like this time created by Johnny Greenwood.
Yeah.
So he had something, but he felt it needed chaos. So he recorded 50 minutes of improvisation, and again gave it to Thom Yorke, who took a short sequence and began to write the song. So I really like the lyrics as well, because you're like, is it about war? Is it about climate change? Like, you could really adapt.
Oh, yeah.
This feels like global alienation. This is not just Thom Yorke anymore. This is like everyone and everything.
Well, yeah.
Have you heard a song live, Babs? Sorry.
Yes, I have heard it live. I like it both ways, actually. I like it live and I do. I like it live and the original. I think, again, like you, it's been a very long time since I've heard this studio, but I think after listening to the sample with the honestly, it again, I keep saying this, but it gave me shivers. The way that it's I think especially when you realize it's done in 1973. Incredible stuff.
Yeah. I didn't know that about the 1973 sample. That's really, really cool.
And Fran sent me a cover version of this song as well before recording.
By who?
Amanda Palmer.
Okay. I'll have to check that out.
Do you like it, Fran? Or
I had no idea that she did a whole album of Radiohead covers. This is where.
Okay.
It's a bit twee. It's a very different version. I'm not the biggest fan of Amanda Palmer, to be fair.
I'm not the biggest fan of Amanda Palmer.
While I have you guys here, can you explain twee? That's like one of the few that I don't understand.
So twee, I guess it's something that's very, I guess it's a bit like innocent and childlike, right? Like not very. I guess the opposite of like
maybe not fully formed, or
no. It's more like it's very light and airy, and I don't know, like the sound a ukulele makes is a twee sound. Like, it's not hardcore or dense or anything. It's very la 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 la. Yeah. But that's not a very good description, I'm afraid.
No. I think that helps. Ukulele, I think, helps. I think I'm starting to understand.
The look of the Wicker Man, that sort of like. Have you seen the film The Wicker Man?
Only that one scene.
Oh, well, okay. Lots of floaty dresses and people doing waving hands action to a ukulele and someone clapping their hands and a high vocal going la 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 la.
Like hippies. Yeah. Hippies are twee. Would that be right? Maybe like your stereotypical ones, maybe?
Well, I've looked up a definition. It says affectedly quaint, printy, or sentimental. So I think it's that, right?
Okay.
Like it's very I think it's kind of like no deeper meaning, right? Like it is what it is.
Okay.
But what's interesting about the Amanda Palmer version, so she's playing a ukulele, which is an instrument that I don't particularly like, and I'm not a big fan of Amanda Palmer.
Yeah.
But the way that she makes the ukulele, the kind of synth sound, and with her voice, it works very well. But what I quite like is instead of having synths, she uses I feel like common household instruments to just make sounds, and those are the bleepy bloops.
Yeah.
So yeah, I quite liked it.
That's really cool. Yeah, you can. I mean, people do like, especially during like pandemic or whatever. People got real creative with everything. But yeah, a really, really amazing track. I don't know what to say too much about the lyrics. It's I think that there's probably some nuclear fallout thing going on here because he mentions a bunker. You know, who's in the bunker? Like who's going to be able to go to the bunker, I guess, is what I drew from that. And I think that
the ice age coming. It could be both nuclear holocaust and
take the money and run.
Climate change.
Yeah. There's a lot of it's one of those songs that, like you were saying earlier, it could be interpreted in many ways. I don't know. I really enjoy it. You know what, this I don't know if this is a good comparison, but this album kind of reminds me of Catch-22, the book Catch-22, where it's
I haven't read it, but I know the premise.
You get what's going on in the story, but it's never explicitly like spelled out, you know. But you
it's
feel
satire, right?
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah.
It's satire, but it's also very, very like you could see it as very, very sad. It's funny, you know. It's dark humor.
I'd be surprised if that's not on Thom Yorke's bookcase, to be fair.
Oh, he's had to have. That's you know that's one of those fun weird ones, you know.
Yeah.
But sorry, did you have another comment about the track?
I was just going to say that's one of those books that I've wanted to read for ages, but I think I picked it up in the library once and read the first 2 pages, and it didn't immediately grip me. I think I was maybe a bit too young, but would you recommend it as a book then?
It's one of those books that by the end of it you don't want to finish it because it will be over.
Okay, that is a good book then.
Yeah. I was legitimate, and that there is a sequel to it that's actually gets into what's going on in this song, which is probably why I thought of it. It's the characters years later, and there's I won't spoil anything, but it's similar to what's going on here, I think. So yeah, any Catch-22 fans out there, let me know. 1608 Hit Nerd, what do you think of that comparison? This next track we got for you guys, we got 3 more tracks for you guys. This is Morning Bell. Fucking A. Do you know the story about this track, you guys?
I thought I did, because I thought it was about divorce, but apparently it's about a ghost that haunted his house.
Yes.
Or something.
Yes. Apparently there was a ghost haunting the house he was at. Not a mean ghost or anything. It's one.
Casper.
Yeah, a Casper of sorts. Yeah. Apparently, he. Hold on. Let me see if I can find the actual description here. Oh, here's the conversation here. Question: is Morning Bell about a breakup or a divorce? Tom: no, not really. This one's actually quite weird. When we came off OK Computer, I bought this house, this empty house, and it had a ghost in it. What sort of ghost? Well, quite friendly, but a ghost. How did you know it was there? You just know. You didn't say it, but you knew. So I filled a whole mini disc of stuff, of songs and half-formed ramblings or whatever. Then there was this lightning strike, and it wiped it all out. I was really upset because there was some really good stuff on it, but that was the general vibe of the house at the time, so I didn't think anything of it. Then I forgot it, and 6 months later, I was on an airplane coming back from Japan or something, and I didn't sleep at all. I hadn't slept in ages, and suddenly I was lying there. He had forgotten some of the stuff. But Morning Bell just came back to me as he had written it with the words and everything. So he had a weird experiment gone awry. Like maybe the ghost didn't want that stuff out there, and he fried the hard drive.
Mm-hmm.
But he was cool with Morning Bell. So.
Do you think it's quite generous that Thom Yorke always puts the whole band down as writers? Because you do get the impression that he's kind of the main driving force, don't you?
Yeah.
And Johnny Greenwood.
I think like to the public, he definitely is, but to the band, he's just one of the members. Because one of the things he mentioned in talking about them kind of almost breaking up at this point was that the biggest thing he realized when they were fully separated and apart for a few months was that he needed them. Like he realized like immediately like he needed them to like, follow through his like wild ideas, and he needed them to support his strange ideas, which kind of gave him the realization that like, they should be all, still be together, which is, they're still doing it. So yeah, I think that they do have at least at this point in their career, they have a understanding of each other, a respect of each other. But yeah, he is always the guy that's being interviewed and talked to because he's the weirdo, Oh yeah, I didn't even mean to quote that song.
But I guess like it's just more of a straightforward vocal from Thom Yorke, I think, in the song. Again, it's less
pretty much
and blobs and robots.
Yeah,
it's almost a bit jazzy, a bit smooth jazz. It's a quiet track with like a sinister end, but I guess
like a John Carpenter-y kind of jazzy,
that organ riff. But I guess we're gonna talk about the Amnesiac version as well, and
we've got to, right?
Oh yeah, well now I'm really curious.
Well, and you mentioned it already, Fran, the I Might Be Wrong version, which actually is my favorite.
Okay.
Because I think I listened.
So wait,
to
this song comes up a couple times.
Yeah, so obviously it's on Amnesiac, but the I Might Be Wrong EP, which I think came out in 2002, I'd say that was as influential an album for me as any Radiohead album from the era, because just because the songs from those albums sound so different live. And the version on I Might Be Wrong. When there's the breakdown, which breakdown? But when there's the breakdown towards the end, there's a guitar and it goes there. It's a guitar, whereas here everything is much smoother, much synthier, much more mysterious.
Yeah, very mysterious.
On that record, it sounds a bit more raw. And as someone who, until today, thought it was about divorce, not a ghost.
Babs, a fun fact, that version
it does say cut the kids in half. Sorry.
That live version was at my gig in Oxford.
I thought you lucky prick. That's all I can say.
Yeah, it sounds like you went to the perfect show.
Brad, and we had like Sigur Rós and Supergrass and Beck. It was a pretty cool day.
Oh, really?
What? Oh my God, that is like the perfect show.
Not
bad. Yeah. But I realized I've only just realized I listened to Amnesiac way before I heard Morning Bell. I listened to Amnesiac and I Might Be Wrong before Kid A. Sorry.
Okay.
Because for the longest time I only knew those versions, and I thought the I Might Be Wrong version I was like, ooh, they've reinterpreted the Amnesiac one in a fun way. It was only much later when I listened to Kid A. I was like, oh no, it's the Kid A version. So again, maybe this is why I do like this album so much, because I listened to it. And this one has also been my favorite. I think my three favorites on this album are in a row, in Limbo, Idioteque, Morning Bell. Maybe, everything is in there a little bit, but I just love how they've made all the different versions of it, and it sounds so different.
As you said before, you can hear Eddie Bryan singing "Walking."
Yeah.
Yes.
With improves.
But live, there's a whole other section. He's going, I wanted to talk to you, but you never listen. I keep on walking. I wanted to talk to you, but you never listen, etc. No, everybody wants to be your friend. Nobody wants to be your slave, which is not on here. So even lyrically, they're changing it up live.
Yeah. Nice.
The Amnesiac version is more of a funeral march kind of vibe to me.
Yeah.
It's less percussion. It's sort of strange why they would put on both rather than having maybe just a B-side version of.
Apparently, I think they're inspired by Revolver and the Beatles doing different versions of the same song. That's what I read, but I don't know that album very well.
Well, I never did like Revolution 1, 2, but I don't know.
Yeah, something like that. I think that's what inspired them. Yeah.
I can't remember which Revolution is the one that I enjoy, but
talking about the weather. Yeah.
There's two though that are like equally popular, kind of. You know. So yeah, it's a weird one.
But I will just finish. I think this is Phil Selway's best drum hook. I love the drums, and I love how tight it is. Just so tight, keeping it together. I think, especially going from, like I said, the global to the personal. Yeah, you know, I feel like you've got a safe pair of hands in Phil.
Yeah, I agree.
And on Pyramid Song, is that Pyramid Song? Yeah.
Yeah, Pyramid Song, yeah.
His drums are pretty epic.
That is pretty good as well, yeah. Once the piano's gone. Yeah. Once it's, not just piano.
Sorry to move along quickly. We got two more tracks. This next track is like the last like normal track or whatever. The final track is kind of a bonus. But yeah, here is Motion Picture Soundtrack. Yeah, that one hits emotionally really well.
Yeah, I think like there's like 3 songs which always make me cry, and this is one of them. And I gave Babs a link earlier. So do you remember the TV show Westworld? Yeah. So in the first season, there's on the final episode, there's a string quartet version of this.
Really?
Which really works, and it's beautiful. You can see the whole thing on YouTube. It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
And then from then, I went down like an alternative version of this song, Deep Dive, and that's where I discovered the 1995 version of Tom and Johnny playing this acoustically.
Oh, really?
Different. Yes. And then I discovered a funeral where there's a brass band, and one of the members has died, and they perform this brass band at a funeral, and it is gut wrenching. And if for some reason I ever like want to let out the pain, I watch that version and go, okay, thank you, I can carry on with my day.
I've worked through this. It was written apparently the same day as Creep. This one. Yeah, I
didn't know that until today.
Yeah.
I have to say, I'm really glad that Fran sent me that version, because I don't like this song very much at all. Like, I basically finished the album at Morning Bell normally.
Oh, really?
So I listened to this twice, and then I went to listen to Fran's version. But the funeral, it's the Calgary Stampede brass band, and it is incredible because not only is it a brass band playing at a funeral. They're not all up on a stage. They're circling the whole crowd. Oh my God. And in the silences, you can hear the people kind of crying, and I think crying at the person who's passed away because they were very young, but also at the emotion of the song. So I think before, I like the harp and I like the voice, but I think the organ playing is quite clunky. Like, sometimes it's nice when you can hear someone, press a button on a piano or, I don't know, move around on the guitar and you hear them hit the board or something. But here you can really hear, especially on headphones, kind of like the button pressing. And I don't know, it annoys me. But that the other version, incredible.
Have you heard the 1995 version?
I have not heard the 95 version. But,
give it a try. Yeah, it's just completely acoustic. But when I keep mentioning that concert again. Sorry.
We're all jealous, Fran. Yeah. Fine.
So this was going to be the last song they played at that concert.
Yeah.
And then a gremlin stopped the keyboard from working. So then the band huddled, and then Tom went, "Oh, fuck it, then." Put on a guitar, and they played Creep. And that was the first time they played it for like 5 years. And everyone,
oh shit.
So it could not have been more perfect.
Yeah. Fuck it.
Thank you to the gremlin that
must have been a really like cathartic moment for Thom Yorke.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm taking back ownership of this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
and you never expect them to play Creep at all. So
no.
wow.
Like considering his very vocal, dislike of that period. Yeah, yeah. But that must have been a really, really cool feeling for him. Yeah.
I think the song's a perfect ending for me.
Yeah,
personally.
if this played at a funeral, I would be bawling. I would not stop bawling. Like this is
to get a bit personal as well. So my mum died when I was 18, and she was a massive Radiohead fan. And at her funeral, I played "Strung Out," which is a string quartet covering OK Computer, because what I didn't mention at the beginning is that my parents really liked classical music, which I listened to and I liked, but I kind of pushed away. And I was like, this is firstly, people won't realize it's rock, so I can get away with it at a funeral. And honestly, I just remember kind of before the ceremony starting, hearing like strings playing Paranoid Android, and it was obviously very moving. So definitely Radiohead, a good funeral music. I can definitely testify.
I never thought about that, but I think that's what we're finding today. Is that if you want a really great funeral, get some Radiohead in there.
Get some Radiohead.
Yeah,
and Brad,
put that in your will.
I would happily put that in my will. But you said that you liked In Rainbows, and there's this group called the Vitamin String Quartet. I don't know if you've heard of them.
I don't think I have.
If you watched Bridgerton, which I didn't, but I know this fact. So in the soundtrack to Bridgerton, it's basically popular songs done by a string quartet, and that's the Vitamin String Quartet.
Yeah.
And I think they might have done the whole of In Rainbows, or at least several songs from In Rainbows.
Okay.
So
that'd be fun.
You might want to check that out.
Yeah. Thank you for all the recommendations, by the way, Babs.
Yeah.
I have a lot of homework to do. I don't know much more to say about this track. It's just, again, if you haven't listened to this album, listen to this track all the way through, and tell me what you think, because it's very moving track in general. Also got some Neutral Milk Hotel vibes from this one. Every now and again they hit that Neutral Milk Hotel emotionality,
It's been years since I listened to them. I need to go and listen.
Also, the lyrics kind of simple, saying crazy and maybe to most bands is a bit clumsy, but it just works with Tom singing it.
Yeah, it's all like, man, there's that nuance that like not everyone gets with lyrics. I don't know. I could rant about that, but I'm not going to.
I don't think I'd ever. I mean, Brad, I don't think you've listened to much of our podcast, but we often were like, we don't really pay attention to the lyrics. So there's plenty of lyrics, even today, that I was like, I didn't know he was talking about the Irish Sea. I don't think I'd realized that the last thing he says is, "I will see you in the next life." That changed it a little bit,
right? Like it's such a powerful last line,
parting line.
Yeah,
it's kind of like whatever happens, everything I've been through, I will see you in the next life.
And I think it shows also that he is grown and maybe become cured of what he was experiencing before with this song. It seems like almost a celebration of that too. But and
a very tongue-in-cheek title as well, of motion picture soundtrack. You can have arrogant,
right?
Like,
This could be this is so big and
we've already
emotional.
done exit music brackets for a film that actually was used as that. But here's another one, guys.
Have they ever done the score for a film?
Just Johnny.
Oh no, and Tom, which I haven't listened to. Suspiria.
Okay, so good.
True.
Okay, good. I was gonna say they're gonna make all these songs referencing it, but they better do a soundtrack.
So exit music for a film was used in Romeo and Juliet, right? And I think it probably was written for that, given that is literally the title. But
my neighbours just started to play some music, so hopefully you can't hear that.
I just started to hear it barely,
very faintly,
but it's. I'm not in the edit. It won't be there. It's fine.
Okay.
But don't worry. I have some music to end us off with. This is the last clip. This is what you would call a secret clip. After a minute after the last track played, you would hear this. very simple, very kind of similar in a lot of ways to like Tree Fingers, in the sense that it's just kind of a vibe,
What are your feelings on hidden tracks, Brad? Do you like them? Do you think they're a bit of a gimmick?
I miss hidden tracks. I do. I like, that's something that like I wish that we could replicate in the streaming age, but I just don't know how, But yeah, I used to find those very, very interesting, especially like if it was like 8 minutes after the last track, or like in the rare case,
you have to rewind
the rewind
something.
ones. Those ones were like that. Just I didn't even know you could do that, So yeah, I really miss hidden tracks.
This was the ringtone for when my girlfriend texted me back in the day.
Really?
Because it's so calm and soothing.
I completely forgot obviously even existed until today.
Yeah,
same.
Yeah, I mean, it motion picture soundtrack ends at a pretty good spot, So I don't know. This is just, I don't know why it's included necessarily, but maybe it's like it's heaven or something. I'll see you in the next life, followed by an ethereal sound.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think like you, I wrote kind of Tree Fingers Part 2. Was it just, given that so much of their music was chopping things up and making little I don't know, phrasings, I guess maybe this was just one of their preferred clips, and they didn't know where else to put it, so they were like, right, let's put it as a hidden track.
I mean, and that is a good place to put one of those. Like a hidden track is a good place for like stuff that doesn't fit anywhere else,
Exactly.
But to be a bit contrary, so the whole album is 47 minutes long. And as somebody who used to make mixtapes, it meant that this song meant you couldn't put 45 minutes on one side.
Oh,
so they did us.
So if you took away Untitled, you could do it though.
Yeah, you could then fit the album on one side, which is beautiful.
Well.
Okay.
I like that as a dislike.
So Thom Yorke is trying to
like
stop people
trying to mess with people in a fun way. He like saw the length of the 10 tracks. He's like, wait, no. We need a little more. I'd like to think that he's trolling for his own amusement. But yeah, it's
been a long time since I recorded a mixtape. The 90s.
It was just
Really?
before my time. I was CDRs and burning CDs. That was my time. Yeah.
Yep, same.
Having to be next to the stereo and put in the vinyl when pressing record and play on a tape. That's love. If somebody did that for you, they liked you a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I respect. I respect it so much. I actually have a tape player finally.
Cool.
Yeah.
I've definitely seen bands selling tapes more. At
it's become a thing. Yeah.
And in Brussels, I think it still exists. There's this very hipster restaurant where it's somehow in collaboration with a tape-only record label.
Yeah.
And you go there, there's a tape deck in your table, and you can listen to tapes while you eat, which is incredible.
Wow. That's
I
very
went
cool.
once before COVID hit, and I haven't been back since, but I'd love to go again to check it out if it's still working, because it's a very nice concept.
Yeah. Yes, similar to those old music shops where you just go and listen to the new stuff,
Yeah, I do wonder, I have two cousins who were kind of 8 and 10 years younger than me, and I think them being so digital natives, right? Like, I don't know how old you are, Brad, but if you're CDR burning age, you're definitely around my age.
Yeah.
I only had a laptop age 18. I only had a smartphone age 22. I had the internet at home, but it was in like a computer.
Yeah. It was the family computer or whatever.
It was the family computer.
Yeah.
If you wanted to do some spicy stuff, you had to, that did well.
That didn't exist yet. I don't think.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think they're both, especially my older cousin, a bit nostalgic about like my generation and the fact that we had that kind of space before launching into
we remember the world before.
So it doesn't surprise
internet.
me that like there are still people making tapes and enjoying that action. I think it's nice to have the option, right? Like it is obviously nice to have streaming, and if someone recommends you a song, you can make your playlist it's easy and you can listen straight away. But
yeah,
because
I mean, like I said, I've been burned before on buying a CD without hearing any of it, so I'm definitely one of those like I usually listen to it before I buy it.
Yeah.
But if I love an album, I will buy it. I still will buy it.
Yeah.
Although it's on vinyl these days for me.
Yeah, you can't. Oh, hang on. I'll switch my light on. Behind me are all my CDs. 1 second.
Oh, you have a giant CD shelf. Nice.
I mean, that's called working in the music store for 7 years.
Oh, nice. Nice. Oh, you got one too? I got one. It's behind me. You can see the best over there.
I see the Beatles now as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Those are like my favorite CDs that I brought out of storage just to be in the background. But man, I love talking about this. I love talking about Radiohead with you guys, but we're coming to a close on the episode, so I'm going to go around. We have one more thing we do before we get out of here, and that is I ask everyone what they've been listening to and what they have to plug. So I'll go Babs, then Fran. Babs, what are you listening to lately?
What have I been listening to? I think one of my favorite underrated bands that we've not really covered properly on the podcast is a band called Tiger Cub, who are, I would say, a noise rock band, but also quite melodic and quite interesting music. It's not just, they can do loud quiet. And I think they've just signed to someone from Pearl Jam's record label.
Okay.
And they're saying that they're going to be sounding much heavier these days. And their latest song, Perfume of Decay, definitely is a bit heavier than their normal offering. But I've been re-listening to their second album. Yeah. And it's really, really good. And I think everyone should check them out if you're vaguely into noise rock.
I could get into that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. What about you? Oh, I know. Anything to plug?
Well, I guess plug our podcast. Really.
Yeah, that's
Come
true.
And listen to it's Over Underrated. So yeah, it's very different because in the terms that we don't usually do albums. We had the Radiohead album special, but yeah, if you like, like I said, listening to people talk about music, but also listen to people talk about fame. Fame and fortune and success. Then I think it is your kind of thing. And yes, Brad will be a guest or is a guest.
Yes.
It's appropriate depending on when this comes out.
Yeah. I'm not sure how that's going to cross, but yeah, I am or was a guest.
Yes, indeed. So come and listen to him.
Yeah. If you're not sick of me talking about King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard on this podcast, go over to Over Under.
Over Underrated.
Underrated.
So I mean, we on Twitter we're at OU Music Pod, and on Instagram we're at Over Underrated Music Pod.
Nice,
so
nice. What about Fran? What have you been listening to? And if you have anything else to plug, what do you got?
So I was at a gig on Thursday seeing a band from the Isle of Wight called Plastic Mermaids. Listening to King Gizzard, they kind of seem a little bit like them. Okay. They are friends of psychedelic music. They got a similar vocal delivery. They love to mix synths, guitars, weird drum patterns. They create their own videos. They do their own artwork. They're very much a DIY kind of band. So when I went to the gig, the band just walked through the crowd and they pat me back and said, "Hi, how you doing?" They're passing the audience for leads to plug in for them. It's there's no, it wasn't like rock stars and fans. It's just everyone's there.
I like this new trend of wholesome rock stars.
Yeah,
I'm really digging it. Yeah.
There's no egos at all, and I guess they got Flaming Lips kind of vibe. They tend to have 2 or 3 kind of semi-catchy hook songs, and then the rest of the songs are just weird. Some sound like Mogwai. They love They love a big climax. They all just go down and whack out the sounds. It's just it's a beautiful mess, and I'm always a fan of the underdogs, and they don't have a big fan base, and I really love them. So
future Brad is listening to Plastic Mermaids right now. So
also, there's a band called Wet Leg who are kind of getting
Wet Leg.
And Wet Leg were their backing singers. They're all in the same music.
Seriously?
Scene. Yeah. If you go on YouTube 5 years ago, you're like, oh my god, that's hello. And then there's 3 or 4 bands from the Isle of Wight. There's a scene happening, and because they're separated from UK, it's nice that they have their own thing happening because they're not being influenced by the London scene. So it's kind of it's all very cool. Yeah, and there's a band called Coach Party also part of that scene.
Yeah,
so
Lauren Hibbard as well. I've heard of. Yeah.
So please check out those bands and make a little island very, very happy.
Yeah.
Regarding plugging, same again. Underrated. Pop it in your ear holes.
Yeah.
Give us a follow.
Really fun podcast. Yeah,
we've covered so many different bands and genres and all sorts, and we're open to anything really. It's nice to have a guest bring something completely different. We had like a blues artist from the 1930s.
Yeah,
I would never come across, So
we got introduced to K-pop by another American podcast, Reggie Crawford, which was fascinating because Fran and I really didn't know anything about it, and that was an interesting one as well because part of it was like, okay, yes, listen to the songs, but watch the dance rehearsal videos, and that's the first time I've ever been given that instruction, but it did make a difference because they're amazing dancers as well as
that's
having
true.
some
That's
really
true.
catchy songs.
Yeah. They really bring back that like late 90s 2000s pop dancing thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. They're great
for the TikTok age.
But exactly, right in time for the TikTok age. Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us on the Album Concept Hour. It's been really, really nice to get your guys' perspectives on Radiohead, Kid A, and we will definitely have to have you guys back for Amnesiac at some point.
Too kind.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us the excuse to do Music Homework on Radiohead. I love talking about them. They're a very special band. And yes, I would not consider them overrated, despite obviously the glowing accolades that they get from all corners of the world.
They're definitely, I think that they're probably overrated here, but I don't know about England. You know what I mean?
Oh, they're big in England.
Overrated was part of the problem early with their career. I don't know. I'm not on your podcast yet. We'll talk then.
So we'll save that for
thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you guys next week on the Album Concept Hour.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
The Album Concept Hour is Brad LeBaron, Dave Gallagher, John Aker, and Jake the Snake Foster. Special thanks to King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard for the theme music. Join the discussion on our Discord, tweet to us at Album Concept Pod, or for everything else, go to Linktree/Flyover State Park. See you on Side B. This is Flyover State Park. You are clear to land.